Hey guys, Karen back for Colony, Season 1, Episode 5, Geronimo, and I was really looking forward to this episode, just from the title in general. I mean, it's called Geronimo, and the description for the episode said everything will be revealed about Geronimo, and that really interested me because we've had this mystery about Geronimo. I mean, who is he? What is he doing? Who is he exactly? What has been his plan? I really felt all that was going to be revealed in this episode, and I was definitely very interested. I did feel that maybe we were getting to that point a bit too early because, of course, he is the main terrorist that Will's going after. But I have to say that while I really did love this episode, I can't help but think that it was a bit disappointing. I mean, the reveal of Geronimo, it works definitely, and I definitely think it will advance the plot a bit, but it didn't really work as well, I think, as it could have, and I'll get into that. But let's just get into this episode. We're now halfway through the season, and definitely things are going to get really crazy. You can definitely tell, and like I said, the show's been renewed for a second season, and definitely I think that season is going to be crazy. But let's just get into this episode. We see right away there's like this kid, there are these posters, and we don't really know what's going on. He's hanging up posters, he gets captured by Red Hats, and clearly he is working with Geronimo. We don't know in what way, but basically that's how the episode starts. And we then see Will, he wakes up early morning to find Katie isn't in bed beside him, but he finds her downstairs paying the dining room. And you can definitely tell in this episode that Will is definitely starting to get suspicious of Katie. I mean, just the way that she's acting. She's not really making herself look innocent. She's really not. I mean, you can tell that there's a lot of damage going on with her physically and mentally. We already know how much, how much this, resistance has affected her since the third episode. And I think it really starts to show that she's, I think, really regretting her choice. She's having a lot of insomnia. She's not sleeping. She's trying to put it to good use by painting the dining room, but Will's just not believing it. You can tell that something's going on with her. And he doesn't know exactly what's going on. I mean, he has an idea because of what Phyllis said, but he doesn't really know if that's true or not. He just has sort of an idea what's going on. So when there's a knock at the door, the two tense up because visitors at 6 a.m. are never a good thing. Luckily, it's just Bo. He's arrived with coffee and he wants to talk in private, and he breaks the news right away that Phyllis is dead. She was shot at close range in her house in the green zone, and basically, right away, Will and Bo arrive at the crime scene and find Jennifer visibly shaken up because who wouldn't be? I mean, the bodies of Phyllis and her husband have already been carted off to the morgue. We also find out her husband was a stroke victim. I mean, it's really tragic to think about. Just the fact that they just went in and killed the two of them. And basically, we see the name Geronimo has been spray painted onto the wall, and they're thinking right away that Geronimo's responsible for this. So Snyder arrives. He's obviously not pleased because Phyllis was one of the few, we find out, who had direct access to the hosts, and he questions how it's possible that one of the most important people in the Transitional Authority gets killed by Geronimo right under their noses. It just doesn't seem like it's something that would happen. Why would she just get killed? So we also see that Geronimo's probably operating out of the green zone, and Bo shares with Snyder that the intel the task force has gathered, which includes the script for the radio broadcast, being left in a drainage pipe that runs the flats to the green zone. And this really, I think, was the first episode where we really saw Snyder stressed out, and things were not going his way. I mean, he tried to make things go his way, but it really didn't, and I like seeing that. I like seeing how vulnerable Snyder really is. I mean, I'm not saying that he's likable after this episode or anything, but definitely I think we're starting to understand more what Snyder's going through, and I definitely like seeing that. So after Will tells Snyder that Phyllis knew and considered the Green Zone fair game, Snyder has no choice but to let them investigate the Green Zone elite, but he warns Will that he'd better be discreet about it because they don't obviously want the resistance to know they're going after them. So Jennifer gets a call that one of Geronimo's guys has been picked up, and we find out it's that teenage boy we saw in the first scene. His name is Sean Miller, and when Will starts to question Sean, right away we see that he is a complete prick. I mean, thinks he knows everything, and he denies doing anything wrong. He lets Will also know that his dad is the head of public health and hospitals, and he's basically trying to threaten Will, but Will isn't threatened or even intimidated, and he throws out a threat that despite that, the whole family could still wind up at the factory. It doesn't matter who you are, and it makes sense, because in a world where there's not as many resources, it would make sense that there's not as many available hospitals and things like that, and even though his dad is the head of it, that doesn't really matter in this world. I mean, people get hurt all the time. It really doesn't matter as much. So basically, because Sean was transporting resistance propaganda in the green zone, they could all end up there. But Will does offer Sean a lifeline that he gets one chance to get himself out of this jam, and that means turning over on the person or people that gave him the posters. And basically, he does give out the location because he obviously doesn't want to go to the factory. We know how bad of a place that is, and basically Will goes out to find them, and we basically know that they're going to try to find Geronimo. So Katie then meets with Broussard, who doesn't completely tell Katie who killed Phyllis. He does not tell her, I thought it was interesting that he does not tell Katie that he was the one that killed Phyllis, but he does let her know the Resistance is responsible. That Phyllis was a threat because her job was to erase the Resistance, and it was their job to make sure it didn't happen. But I can't help but think there's a more personal reason why he specifically tried to, why he killed Phyllis. I feel like there's something more personal going on there. Just the way that Broussard acted around her, I just feel there's more going on. I don't know exactly what that could be, but it just feels to me that there's something more going on there. Now, what it is, I don't know. Episode 7 is going to be called Broussard, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be all about Broussard and, like, what he's been doing. So we'll have to see what happens there, but definitely that's going to get very interesting. So Will, Bo, and a swarm of Red Hats descend upon a house in the Green Zone in this incredibly awesome action scene. I mean, this was really, really, I think, jarring. Not jarring, but that's not the word I'm looking for. This was really intense, very well handled, and I think that's one of the things that showed us very well. I mean, their action scenes are really intense, and the stakes are really high, and the place right away appears to be completely empty, and neither Will or Bo believe the place to be the home base of the Resistance most popular figure. They think that Sean has tricked them, and I was like, okay, Sean's going to the factory, definitely, that's what's going to happen here. But then they discover this entrance to a secret room where they come across a young man and woman, and the place is lousy with Geronimo paraphernalia, so we know that they are at least responsible for making these posters. They don't know anything else, we just know that they are definitely the ones making the posters. Now, there's also an old typewriter, presumably used to type up the radio broadcasts and a recorder, and well, that's the man point blank who Geronimo is, and he says that we're Geronimo. Now, we find out what that means a little bit later because now he's talking about Bram. We finally find out what's been going on with Bram's girlfriend, Paya, because as we know, the last time we saw her, Paya brought Bram to help her get her cousin out who had been injured. There was a long ladder that led to a small opening into what Paya called the rest of the world, and we find out what that means, what the rest of the world was. She finally takes Bram through the rabbit hole. All that's there is the deserted remains of city streets, and the place shows signs of battle scars. I mean, things are really dire here. If you guys thought that this world was bad, things are much worse where Paya lives because windows are blown out and broken. There are scorch marks on most of the buildings, and Paya leads them to a warehouse full of supplies, which has pretty much everything they need. I mean, if you guys know in this world, their resources aren't as readily available as they usually are. And she tells Bram that she found the place and believes it's some sort of food distribution center. And Paya's been outside the wall 11 times and still hasn't seen anybody there because they probably don't know it's there. So they pillage for items hard or impossible to come by inside the block, and definitely he's going to use this as advantage because all of the resources he needs are right there. And I don't know if that's probably why she didn't want to tell him, because he could get in real trouble for this. But I don't know if the Red Hats know this exists. Definitely. It doesn't seem like the Red Hats know this exists or anyone knows. So I definitely think that he's going to use this as advantage. And that definitely is going to be very interesting. So the Transitional Authority makes an announcement over the citywide speaker system. They say that Geronimo's headquarters have been breached. No, and this is obviously Snyder's idea. The circumstances surrounding the raid are greatly exaggerated, making it sound like a daring shootout. Many of Geronimo's trusted lieutenants were killed. And on this historic day, the selfish forces of terror have been defeated, and basically they're trying to say that we got Geronimo, he's captured. But Snyder really feels like an idiot after this, because when he shows up at Homeland headquarters, he doesn't even think that these two kids couldn't be the masterminds behind the Resistance. He knows that these two kids definitely had nothing to do with it. There's definitely something more going on. And Will Weisner that it might have been wise if he had checked in before making a pronouncement that now has left him with egg all over his face. And I honestly thought it was kind of a funny scene, because Snyder here is supposed to be this brilliant man who knows what he's doing. He's supposed to be the head of the town and just on top of things constantly. And just the fact that he thought, things went the way he wanted to really was what ruined things for him here. And it makes sense, definitely, why this was ruined. I mean, I just can't believe that Snyder would do this, that he actually thought that they had, I mean, it makes sense why he thought they had Geronimo, but basically, he obviously feels like an idiot. The man the woman Will busted are interrogated, but they have actually no connection to any of the attacks whatsoever. The man is an ad executive and the woman is a graphic artist. And the man still insists that he's Jerome, but when Snyder asks who they were working for, the woman responds that they were the voice for every citizen of the block, that they basically were just trying to, they didn't have guns. They had words, images, and the power to get inside people's heads and get them to retaliate. And Will tells him what they actually accomplished was inciting insurgents to kill innocent citizens. And the woman questions how Will can be a collaborator, and she tells Will that he isn't one of them, he's one of us. And that's very interesting that she said that, because we know that Will isn't really with Snyder. He's really not with them. That he's only doing it because Snyder said you do it or I'm taking you to the factory. But it kind of seems like he's starting to understand them. Like, he's starting to understand Snyder's points. He's starting to understand why they do what they do. I mean, I'm sure he isn't happy, of course, that he's trying to get Charlie back, but I kind of feel like Will's starting to understand them a bit more, and I kind of like seeing that. Definitely very interesting as to what really is going on there, because it just seems like Will's starting to understand them more. So Snyder will leave, and Will remind Snyder about their deal. His job was to find Geronimo, and of course he gets Charlie back. But Snyder, of course, things have to go his way, and that's not what he wants to do. He argues their deal was predicted on the understanding that Geronimo was the leader of the resistance, not hipsters, and he informs Will that since Phyllis is dead, he's now in charge, and it makes sense. I mean, he's very good at what he does. He very much cares about his job, and while Snyder goes through the long, arduous process of trying to get Charlie extradited from another block, Will needs to find the real terrorist. Now, I don't really believe that he's going to try to find Charlie. I don't really think that Snyder's going to do that. I mean, he hasn't really been doing that. That's not what his agenda's been. So I don't really think he's going to try to find Charlie. So definitely something else is going to happen, and I don't really think who the real terrorist is, we don't really know, and I like that we kind of are leaving that open. So Snyder's announcement about Geronimo did not have the effect on Resistance at all. It really not much effect on them. What actually happened is that Quail, now he was thinking the Resistance would just back off, that they would be threatened, but that's not what happens. Quail addresses a few of his followers, including Katie. He wants to make sure the occupation of the Resistance is undiminished. He warns them to prepare themselves, that war is about to begin, and things are going to get crazy, definitely. I mean, just from that line, it's going to get crazy. And now that Will's in charge, he can follow up on his hunch that Jennifer is the leak, because, like we know, he thought that Jennifer was the leak. Phyllis kind of denied it, but now that he's in charge, he can basically do anything he wants. And he calls her into his office, accuses her, saying that it isn't himself or Bo, so she's the only one left. And Jennifer responds that Phyllis had her own theory about the leak, and Jennifer asks Will why he thinks Phyllis and Katie come to her office alone, and basically is trying to increase his suspicions about Katie, which definitely doesn't help, because when he goes home, he finds Katie gone. And the tutor, Lindsay, says that Katie's at the bar, but Will takes the opportunity to ask Lindsay if she remembers anything unusual about the day their house was bombed, because as we know, Katie was the one that caused the fire. It had nothing to do with their house being bombed. Katie caused the fire. She was told to do it, and it was all her. Now, what's interesting about Lindsay is the way that she says this. She says she took the kids to the park and missed the whole thing. Now, Lindsay is, I kind of feel like she knows what's going on, but she also doesn't. Like, she has an idea, but she doesn't fully understand, so she's just trying to cover things up and trying to make things look good. But Will clearly is not, not believing what's going on. He doesn't fully understand it, and when he breaks the news to Kay about Phyllis, she does do, I think, a convincing job of looking surprised. But Will asks Kay if she said anything about Phyllis to anyone. She swears that she didn't. Then he has Katie give him a little bit more information about the conversation that Katie had with Phyllis. Maybe something that could help with his investigation, which obviously is not for that reason. That is not why he wants her to do it. He wants her to do it so he can prove that she's innocent, because he doesn't want to think, obviously, he doesn't want to think that his wife could be part of the resistance, but he's starting to think that she could be the leak. And Katie admits that Phyllis seems suspicious of her, and that Phyllis seemed to be trying to figure out if the bombing had anything to do with Katie, Will, and their marriage, and Will doesn't understand why Phyllis would be fishing in that. He doesn't even know why Phyllis would target her, because to him, Katie's just some woman, his wife that works at the bar and then takes care of his kids. That's all Katie really is to him. He doesn't really think that Katie's doing anything, but he definitely is starting to get a bit more suspicious, and it makes sense. I mean, the way she's been acting, she's been trying to cover things up. It's just getting too hard. And I think Katie definitely very soon is going to regret her decision and what she had to do. And yes, it was to protect her family, but it's going to damage her family. I mean, the way this is going, that's definitely where I see this happening. So we do find out to mention here about Snyder in this episode. Snyder actually has a boss, we find out. Helena. She works for the Governor General, yet to be seen power player. Now, the Governor General is really the big man in charge. And Snyder wants to know if the hosts have been informed about Geronimo's capture. And I was convinced that Snyder was basically the head of all this, that he was the one that was responsible. But no, it's really the Governor General. And Snyder wants to know if the hosts have been informed about Geronimo's capture. But Helena says the hosts are aware there is a resistance, but they haven't told anything specific about Geronimo, which he is relieved about because he doesn't want to look like an idiot. He doesn't want to look like he's the reason for this. And the Governor General wants to wait, see where all this is going first. So our question for Snyder is, will Geronimo roll over on the other terrorists? But Snyder has no choice but to admit that Geronimo is nothing more than a figurehead, but he's got a plan to use Geronimo's power to their advantage. Now, what he's going to do, we don't really know, but it's clear that he's going to use these two kids, and definitely he's going to use them in some way. So Snyder's grand scheme, though, involves Luis Ortega, who is that fake Geronimo that Will busted last week that we thought was Geronimo but really wasn't, and he wants Luis to play the role of Geronimo in public, to a patsy to take the fall, pretty much. You know, he doesn't want to look like an idiot. He wants to make it seem like they actually did capture Geronimo. And Snyder will spare his life and get Luis sent to another colony, but you know that he has another objective. I mean, things are always going Snyder's way. He's clearly doing it to cover his own ass, and it really has nothing to do with Luis. He does not even care about him, I think. So Will searches the bar, comes across Katie's box of keepsakes, but not much else. There's a Joseph Conrad shovel in there, which should be telling since Justin had a book of the authors as well. And again, he definitely is starting to get suspicious, and Will doesn't know what's going on yet, but he no longer thinks that Jennifer's a spy. Now, I don't think that Jennifer's a spy, but this scene was very shady. I mean, just the way that Jennifer was acting, she was giving some really questionable responses. He apologized to her, and the two bond over a glass of whiskey. Will questions why Phyllis would think Kay is working for the Resistance, but Jennifer tells him not to take it personally, as Phyllis was suspicious of everybody. But I don't know. The way that this is going, I just feel Jennifer's a bit suspicious. We see Jennifer, he asked Jennifer what she thinks about the leak, and she thinks they don't have a leak, that the Resistance is getting their information from somewhere else, and we know that they do have a leak. It's Katie. Katie is the leak, and that's what's going on there, and we get to see a softer side to Jennifer, but I don't fully believe the story. She tells Will how her fiance had been killed, collateral damage during a terrorist attack, and the thing about this, though, is that a lot of it seemed fake. It seemed like she made it up as she went along. She's like, my husband, Jason, was killed during collateral damage. Like, it just seemed like she was trying to make herself look good because he's her boss now, and he doesn't want him to look suspicious. And she doesn't want him to look suspicious, obviously. So, I think it would make sense why she did this. I do think part of this is true. I don't think she came with the entire thing. I don't think she's really that smart. But I do think that some of it is complete bullshit. I don't really believe everything that Jennifer says. Now, I don't know exactly what Jennifer is doing or what role she's playing in all this, but I definitely feel there's more to her than Will suspects, definitely. And I don't know what capacity, but there's definitely something going on there, and I just don't really know what is yet. We'll have to see. Definitely that's going to be very interesting. So Snyder, meanwhile, is going to great lengths to save his own ass. He's orchestrating an elaborate televised trial starring Louise as Geronimo, and oddly, Snyder is also presiding as the judge. And he's got a steady stream of tearful witnesses, the family of slain Homeland officers, and anyone else you could think to parade out to paint Geronimo as a monster. And Snyder does find Geronimo guilty, and he sentences him to death. He does not go along with the deal. Obviously, we knew this because things always need to go Snyder's way, and he screws Luis over it as well. Obviously, he's really pissed. The guy's parade out in public, hung like a character in Old Western. I mean, what the hell was that thing he was hung on? That was crazy. And, basically, obviously, Luis is really upset, but he's killed, and they pretty much had to do that, obviously, because they need to make it look like Snyder was an idiot and that Geronimo actually was killed, and basically, the Resistance race to make a bold move. It involves Snyder. What they don't know is that it's dealing with Will as well, and Katie's definitely going to have to confront Will about what's going on, and that's how the episode ends. So overall, guys, really great episode. I really did enjoy this episode for the most part. There were definitely some things that, like I said, the reveal with Geronimo, I'm just not a huge fan because it seemed like Geronimo was going to be something much bigger, and it didn't really feel big. It felt like something stupid. And I understand that, they kind of jumped to conclusions, things like that. I can totally understand that. That's perfectly fine. But I just wanted more, and I do think it's going to go somewhere now that Snyder is going to, I think, try to get into their heads. But what exactly he's going to do, I'm not really sure. That definitely is going to be interesting to see what Snyder plans on doing with these two kids, because I definitely feel, like I said, he's going to try to get into their heads, use them to his ability. We'll have to see exactly what he plans on doing with them, because he definitely has some plan. I just don't know what it is right now. As far as this whole situation with Katie, Katie needs to come clean to Will. He's starting to get suspicious. He definitely does not trust her, and she needs to tell him the truth. I mean, she needs to tell him straight out what she's doing, because he definitely is going to find out before she tells him. Definitely, very close. I mean, what Jennifer said, everything like that. Jennifer, I don't know. I mean, Jennifer, in my opinion, I just don't really trust her now. The way that she said things to Will, definitely there's something going on there. Now, what Jennifer's role is, like I said, I don't really know what she's doing. We'll have to see. The Governor General, I don't really know who the Governor General is. Definitely, we're going to have to find out who that is. But who is the real threat? I mean, since Geronimo we know is not the terrorist, who is the main terrorist that Will needs to go after? We don't really know. As far as Snyder saying he's going to give Charlie back to Will, it's clear that's not really where he's going. So I hope that Will understands that. But I really do feel that Will is starting to get lost into this job, that he really is starting to understand more of what they're doing. Definitely, it's going to be very interesting. Like I said, he's definitely getting more suspicious of Katie. Things are not going to end well for them if she continues to go the way they are. And then as far as Bram goes, what is he going to do about Pi? I mean, he knows that she has these resources, but they need them because their world is literally destroyed. So he's really conflicted. I mean, obviously, he cares about his girlfriend. He wants her to have these resources because, like I said, they need them. But at the same time, he kind of wants them for himself. So what really is he going to do here? We'll have to see. I'm not really sure. That's going to be very interesting. I like seeing this more vulnerable side of Snyder. I think it makes him a lot more vulnerable, just knowing that he has this boss, Helena. What's going to happen here? We'll have to see what exactly they're going to do next, because definitely this is going to be really crazy, and I definitely think someone's going to die. I really do think that someone's going to die at some point. Maybe Broussard, maybe Quayle, but someone is definitely going to die. Quayle specifically said that war is coming, and definitely I feel that's going to be the next episode, is war is definitely coming. But that's not going to be before Will finds out that Katie's working with the Resistance. That's got to happen soon, and it's going to happen at some point. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's definitely going to happen at some point. But overall, guys, amazing episode. Really did love it overall. Well, really, not amazing episode, but really great episode overall. Like I said, a bit disappointed with the Geronimo reveal. It wasn't a bad reveal, guys. It really wasn't bad. It's just, it's not really where I thought the show was going. I think it definitely could have been a bit more interesting than they did, but overall, I did enjoy this episode for the most part. I thought this was a really strong episode. I know what you guys saw this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the Vampire Diaries. I know you guys want me to review it. I will review in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.